Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Hello dear students, welcome to another lecture. In this class, we are going to begin with chapter 6 of class 12 literature reader Nagaland War, which basically is a poem written by Gerard Manley Hopkins. Now this poem, which is titled Spring and Fall, is a conversation that the poet had with a little girl. Now, this little girl was grieving. She was feeling sad. She saw the leaves of a golden grove unshedding. So, she saw that in the autumn season, the leaves of this tree were falling. That sight made this girl very sad, and she started to cry. The poet, on the other hand, had this question for this little girl, that why are you grieving for the shedding of leaves? Are you so emotional that you treat human beings and the things alike? Loss of a human being and loss of a tree or leaves. Do both these things hold the same value for you? Then he also says that right now, since you're too young, that is why you have such emotions in you. Once you will grow old, according to you, both the things will be alike and nothing will matter to you. So let us read this poem, this very emotional poem that the poet has written and is in conversation with a little girl. So the poet says that, have you ever seen the leaves falling down during the autumn season? Yes, we all have. What are your feelings at that time? Are there any specific thoughts that come to your mind at that time? Do you think that seasons have a special significance in your life? Discuss. Now, as I said, the poem is about the autumn season when this little girl saw the leaves of a tree shedding and her feelings at that point in time. So let us start reading this poem. Margaret, are you grieving over golden grove unleaving? Leaves like the things of man, you with your fresh thoughts care for, can you? So the poet asks the little girl whose name is Margaret. So the poet asks this little girl, Margaret, are you grieving? Are you feeling sad? Are you crying? Are you feeling sorrowful over golden grove unleaving? Unleaving means shedding of the trees. The shedding of leaves. So when the tree sheds its leaves, that is known as unleaving. So the poet asks Margaret that, are you feeling sad because this tree that is named Golden Grove is shedding its leaf? Leaves like the things of man, you with your fresh thoughts care for, can you? With your fresh thoughts means that since you are still young, therefore you treat leaves just like man. So for you, there is no difference between a thing such as leaves or a human being. And therefore, you express your emotions equally over the loss of both of them. For you, being so young, it does not matter that what you are crying for is simply leaves, the dead leaves that fell off the trees. Since you have so many fresh and innocent thoughts in your mind that you believe that man and things like leaves are all the same, and therefore you express your sorrow over each of those equally. As the heart grows older, it will come to such sights colder. By and by, nor spare a sigh, though worlds of vanwood leaf may lie, and yet you will weep and know why. So he says that as the heart grows older, when you are going to grow old, you will become cold to such sights. Cold means unaffected. All these things, something like this that you are crying on right now, that is the shedding of leaves. Something like this is not going to affect you at all once you grow old. By and by, nor spare a sigh. By and by means slowly and gradually, when you will grow even more, you will not even spare a sigh. Spare a sigh means you will not even breathe, heavily for something that you have lost. So there would be no sigh that you will heave. Though worlds of vanwood leaf will lie, and yet you will weep and know why. So he says, vanwood leaf meal are the leaves that fall one after the other. And vanwood means that during the autumn season, all the leaves that fall one after the other, they just cover the ground entirely. So he tells the little girl that once you will grow up, you will feel unaffected by something like this. Right now, being so young, you are crying, you're feeling sad about the shedding of the leaves. But once you will grow up, you will not even spare a sigh. You will not even feel anything bad when you will come across so many leaves that will be fallen on the ground from the tree. And yet you will weep and know why. But then also there will be just one thing that will make you cry. And do you know what it is? The poet talks about that in the last 2 lines of his poem. Let us continue further. He says, now, no matter, child, the name, sorrow's springs are the same. Nor mouth had, no, nor mind expressed, what heart heard of goes unheard. He says that no matter, child, the name, sorrow springs are the same. Sorrow springs means the sources of sadness. So, no matter, child, the name. He says, no matter what the name be, no matter what age you may be, no matter who you might be, but the sorrows, the sources of sadness that one has in one's life are always going to be the same. So even when you will grow old, you will realize that you might have grown old, that now there are other things that make you feel sad and bad, but the sources of these sadness are all the same. Now here, the sources of sadness, this spring that has been used here, this is a metaphor. What is this? This is a metaphor. Metaphor means when you are, comparing something to something, something to somebody or somebody to something. So that is when we use a metaphor. So metaphor is used when we are comparing two things without the usage of like or as. So he says that, once you are going to grow old, you will realize that all these things that we have around us that might end up making us sad and sorrowful. So, the reasons of these things are more or less the same. They make you unhappy. They make you sad in almost the same way, no matter what. Nor mouth had, no, nor mind expressed, what heart heard of ghost guessed. Ghost means your spirit. So here he talks about the sadness only. That when we are going to grow old, we will come across different types of sorrows and sadness in our life. such sorrow and sadness, nor mouth had nor mind expressed. We will come across such sadness and problems in our lives that neither it would be possible for us to talk about them. Mouth means we would not be able to talk about them. We would not be able to think about them. Even what heart heard of ghost guessed, even our spirit, the deep inside of us, would not be able to guess or foresee something like this happening to us. It is the blight man was born for. It is Margaret you want. He says that this is the blight, this is the destruction that every man is born for. And do you know, Margaret, what you are crying for? You are crying for you. That means you are crying because you realize that one day something like this will happen to you as well. That one day this cycle of life will come to an end for you as well, and you will have to die. And it is this thought that is bothering you, and it is this thought which has made you cry. So my dear students, with this I come to an end of the explanation of the poem. I shall pause here now. In the next part of my video, I'll discuss with you the summary as well as the back exercises of this book. So I shall see you all now in my next lecture.